Good evening and welcome to another edition of That Millwall podcast. Little bit interesting tonight because we're the first show that's not Chat with Chaps to go out in the new year following the 1-0 victory at Bristol City. Tonight I'm joined by two gentlemen that slandered, that threw our club captain and legend under the bus on a previous show, I think before Ipswich. And if it was up to them, he'd have been thrown on a scrap heap and sent out on loan this transfer window. But firstly, Dan, any words to say to our club captain?
I've just removed Stephen from the stage for the benefit of our viewers. I do apologise to Sean Hutchinson. He's just what a lad he is, isn't he? To be honest, cracking finish. So
You forget
yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah, I know. Well, you forgot I could do that as well, couldn't you? Yeah, I'm a bit sorry for Hutch, I'll be honest, but.
And Ben, after his stellar man of the match performance yesterday and cracking finish, have you got any words to say to our club captain?
All right, first of all, Happy New Year to you too. No, I just want to point out before that, I have said he's been part of the best partnership in the Championship with him and Hoops. So just to get him a little get out of jail free card in. Always happy to be proved wrong, mate, is what I'll say. And he's come back from a number of injuries now and proved us all wrong, probably time and time again. So fair play to the fella. Delighted for him. Is that all right?
That's absolutely fine. We're going to have a pro Sean Hutchinson tonight, and as Ben rightly did throw me under the bus. Happy New Year to all of our listeners and to you guys. I hope whatever you did on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve and then New Year's Day was the best way to start the year. And obviously for the Lions, it really was. As I say, we start the year with a 1-0 victory. I'm going to say, I'll come to you first, Dan, on this. I'm going to say probably deserved overall.
I would say deserved. We really nullified the Bristol City attack, but the way we actually played when we got on the ball was, you can see there's definitely something developing under Edwards in terms of patterns of play. The possession was up from the games against QPR and Norwich as well. So I thought the blend between the stubbornness of the Rowett defence and maybe a little bit more of what Edwards wants to do. I think maybe when he came in, he did probably trying to reinvent the wheel just that little bit too quickly, and maybe he's had to take a couple of steps backwards to be able to take them strides forwards. But I would say second half was a really, really good performance, and obviously topped off with a goal which I do think was deserved. And obviously we'll dedicate this one as well to John Berylson after what happened earlier in the season in the home fixture against Bristol City.
Absolutely, and as Dan said there, Ben, I think Joe Edwards perhaps tried to take on a little bit too much too soon. Perhaps when he first come in, you can understand why. You can understand, wanting to stamp a little bit of authority on the team and what he wants. Do you think that perhaps whilst he's still trying to get us to play slightly different to what we were under Gary Rowett, he's realised that for the time being, perhaps that we do need to have a little bit of stick to what we know, with a little bit of sprinkle of Joe Edwards' style?
Yeah, definitely. I think there has been an element of that. Just one thing to point out, though, we did lose to Leicester, Ipswich, Coventry, and an undeserved winner by Cardiff. So there needs to be a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just there needs to be some realism in who we actually played. They're probably, obviously, Leicester and Ipswich are at top of the table for a reason. Everyone knows my love and admiration for Coventry. So we've played three good sides there where we've got beat. But yeah, absolutely, we have seen a change in going back to the Rowett style. Well, not even the Rowett style. The Millwall way have just been a bit more hard to beat. Some togetherness, which we've seen. I know we're going to come on to in a bit more detail later, but the togetherness seems to be back with the squad. The difficult to beat nature has come back in there. So yeah, I've been really impressed with the way that Edwards has seen that. The players have seen that. A couple of the players have mentioned it in their post-match interviews. So yeah, as a collective, we've reacted really well to some heavy defeats, and yeah, we've been brilliant the last 5 games, really, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think interestingly, if you take the 5 games, and obviously we'll come back to yesterday, but if you take the 5 games, it was a last-minute penalty against Huddersfield that stopped us to earning all 3 points that day. We were a 94th minute, probably a rusty Emarku on the end of that chance at Stoke, potentially from another 3 points. I think the performance that day was more grit and determination, but we could well have nicked it at the end. So it's been a fruitful spell. It's been, as you say, the togetherness, the spirit of the squad, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But coming back to yesterday, I thought what was interesting from the point of view, Norwich had a lot of the ball and it was a dogged performance. I thought Bristol City had perhaps not as much of the ball. Obviously, they had more of the ball than us, but we certainly stopped them dead in their tracks pretty much on the halfway line. When it got passed into our own half, I don't think we had much to worry about, apart from one Mati Sarkic save, which I thought was a very, very good save.
Yeah, it was an excellent save. Just to touch on Bristol City as well, they won 3 of their last 4 going into the game, so they were on good form. If anyone watched the highlights like I did, they had one highlight, which was that Sarkic save. They didn't have another highlight in the extended highlights, the full highlights. They just didn't. They had bits of possession, but at no point did I ever feel like they were going to hurt us, to be honest. And as I say, they had that one chance, and Sarkic made a great save. Little bit of a mention for him. He certainly seems to have turned a corner. I was one of the doubters in his stature, I think, more as a keeper, his presence as a keeper. And I think, he's picked up form, made some important saves at important times, buying a bit of a head loss at Leicester. He's certainly improved his form, which has been needed. But yeah, going back to the game, as I say, they had one chance. There wasn't any other moment in the game where I felt threatened by them. And as I say, that they'd been in good form, won 3 of their last 4. So a very, very professional and good away performance in the Championship.
And can I just quickly jump in as well to nullify a Liam Manning team like that? I've watched a lot of these teams play football when he's been at MK Dons and Oxford, and the way they want to play is very much the way that every manager seems to want to set their teams up now, to have 70% of the ball, to dominate possession, to pass the ball around you, to get into the attacking areas in them pockets of space. And we completely nullified any of that. And it wasn't even the fact that we just let them have the ball in their own half, because even if you look at the possession stats, they're a lot closer than they have been in the games versus QPR and Norwich as well.
Absolutely. And I think, interestingly, just to touch on both of those, we've played progressively, I would say, for you've got QPR, Norwich and Bristol City. We probably played progressively better teams in a row. I think QPR, we all know, probably struggling. And whilst that was a big result, we in a way, we probably needed to win that game more than the other two. Norwich, good side. Again, I thought we nullified them pretty much most of the night. And then Bristol City yesterday, again, we limited them to one chance. Before we come on to the goal, which I'm sure there's a lot of happy supporters when that hit the back of the net. But, again, yesterday, it was the back 4 that was signed by Neil Harris. I know when sometimes out of possession, Brooke Norton-Cuffy drops back into to a 5, and he obviously wasn't signed by Harris. But that 4 again have stood up and have been counted again for a man. And whilst I think we all know that it's not going to last forever, and Joe Edwards is probably thinking, we'll get through to the end of the season with what we've got. It's nice to see those 4 lads earning clean sheets, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, massively. Obviously, we've seen some legend shouts thrown about for Hutch and Cooper, both in Hutchinson, obviously more recently, Cooper when he signed the new contract, and Murray Wallace, as much as we like to give him criticism, he's obviously been a great servant for the club. And Leonard, most of us, I think most of the fans when we did our live show off the back of Norwich said that he would be in their, I think everyone put him in their top 3 players. Most people, he was in number 1 or number 2 for part of the season. So obviously it's brilliant to see them. We obviously want the best for our players, but I think that says a lot about the type of players Neil Harris signed, and Rowett commented on it as well. Obviously, every single player at the club's a thorough professional player. They all want the best for themselves and the team. And Harris, when he was here, if he felt there was a bad character in the group, he weeded them out and would get them out of the club as quickly as he could. So just got to obviously you want to maintain them standards. You don't want any bad eggs in your group, but you obviously want to be able to add bit of quality where you can as well.
Not only Rowett, sorry, Steve, I was going to say, not only Rowett's mentioned that, but Edwards has mentioned it multiple times now as well, right? So it does go to show the level of character that we have in that dressing room and the personnel, the type of personnel that Harris wanted to build for the club. So there needs to be a lot of credit to those players for. I can't imagine there's many sides in the league that would have a back four, back five that have played as many games or across a number of seasons like we've got. So huge amount of credit to them. Coops and Muzzer, really. I think Muzzer's had one layoff with injury, really, which was it last year that he was out for a bit?
Yeah, he was.
Again, apart from that, not really been injured. Obviously, we know with Leonard, he's been unlucky. Hutch, again. But, yeah, Muzzer and Coops, just ridiculous levels of fitness, durability. We always talk about how tough the league is. Yeah, just fantastic, the level of service that they've given us, really.
And another point I wanted to raise again on the team and perhaps players that I think was signed under Harris and then left and come back was George Saville, not in the playing squad yesterday, but travelled with the team on New Year's Day. I'm sure, as I put in our chat earlier, I'm sure his family and his partner were thrilled that he decided to make that journey up with the team. But it just
we're judging him. He might have taken him for a nice New Year's Eve out in Bristol. You just don't know.
Yeah, if he did, then I hold my hands up and apologise. But I can't imagine that how do you sell that realistically? How do you sell that on New Year's Eve? But yeah, it just again the type of characters that Harris brought in, and he obviously was brought back by Rowett, I believe. Those sort of players that, whilst we know that they won't last forever, it's important to have those characters within a Millwall squad. And we all know, as I say, I know with Saville, and I'm sure other people do, he's in a good spell at the moment, but eventually that will run out, much like Hutchinson, Murray Wallace. But they still have a part to play in bringing in the youngsters. Let's go on to the goal. 92nd minute, corner comes in, I think, cleared by the Bristol City defenders, nodded back into Billy Mitchell. And if you'd have said, out of every player that was on the pitch yesterday, that one of them was going to swivel and hit a volley with their left foot, I would imagine that Sean Hutchinson was probably the last name that you would have thought of. Right, Dan?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been near the top of the list. I don't also think, to be honest, I would have put Billy Mitchell near the top of my list, to be completely honest, in terms of getting the assists. I think that's only what is. I saw someone say that might only have been his second ever assist for Millwall. So it's a very unlikely duo to pop up to combine to score the goal. But I'm all for it, to be honest. If Sarkic wants to get involved, by all means he can. Whoever's scoring the goals. I mean, I was working yesterday, so I wasn't in Bristol, but yeah, I think everyone in my office now knows I'm certainly a Millwall fan.
And Ben, obviously, you touched on there that you said that you obviously watched the highlights, but from to try and be as unbiased as possible, even though we are a Millwall channel, for your centre half, who's a right-footed centre half, to ping that in the bottom corner, it's a finish and a half, isn't it?
Oh, mate, I'm sure if Bradders or Nisbet had scored that, we'd all been going. Well, certainly in Nisbet's fan club, would have been going, what a strike, unbelievable composure, finish, etc. So, yeah, for his centre half to be swivelling on his weaker side and to smash it in the bottom corner like he did is some finish, some strike. He'll be delighted. Did hear on the highlights, I think it was his first goal since March 22. So I think he'll be. I think again he mentioned in his post-match interview he's been a bit disappointed he hasn't got on the score sheet a bit more. But yeah, unbelievable finish from him.
Absolutely. And to move on to the subject and the next subject here, the togetherness and the spirit in the squad. I think when you score a 92nd minute goal, the reaction for the crowd is obviously that little bit more. You feel like you've won the goal, you're going to win the game. But the players, Amaku, Leonard, Ryan Longman, another one, a lone player, that their reaction to the goal in front of the supporters. I mean, Amaku he looked like he was desperate to jump in with a crowd and join them.
After the game and everything, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. They've just completely, utterly bought into it, and the incident just after with Leonard at the other end, which, by the way, he was absolutely shoved into that advertising board. He had every right to kind of stick up for himself. But we talked about before we come on the togetherness and the spirit in the squad. There's been a lot of talk that perhaps we were a little bit soft under Gary Rowett, and perhaps when Edwards first come in. But I think you've seen over the last couple of games that these players, they're getting a rocket when they go out onto the pitch, and they're standing up for each other and sticking up for each other very, very well, right?
100%. I think not even from the Bristol City game, the way the players reacted with the Ashley Barnes fiasco that was going on against Norwich, it wasn't just one person that was getting stuck in, it was multiple at a time. And I've seen tweets, and it's probably something we've kind of spoken about, and we have lost that a little bit over the last few years. That nastiness, if you like, that real togetherness when someone is a bad tackle goes in or it does a bit of handbags, everyone's in there. And you saw that going back to the goal. There's been shots of it from behind Hutch when it goes in. Nisbet sort of outside the box. You see his reaction. It was delight from everyone. You mentioned Longman. Obviously, it's easy to do when it's a 92nd minute winner. But, yeah, there was a real togetherness, delight, relief, whatever about the squad. And it's something that I feel we have missed for a long time. And you know what? The handbags at the end with Leonard, I was more pleased about that. We all got stuck into that. We weren't leaving Lenny on his own. That's what we're all about as a club, right? So yeah, it's brilliant to see. It's great to see. I don't want to say we have our Millwall back, but we're on the road to.
Absolutely, and I think Dan, it's interesting. It's almost as if Ashley Barnes single-handedly has kind of sparked a reaction from the squad. His antics, whilst relatively unpunished during the game, and obviously retrospectively, which was never going to happen anyway, brought the crowd into play, brought George Saville, George Honeyman, Cooper, Leonard, brought them into play, and that seemingly carried on now. That the players are thinking, right, you know what? We are in this together. We are playing for the manager. We are playing for the supporters that made the journey yesterday, and it's good to see, right?
Well, I can only assume Barnes has got injured then, because he must have lost his head at the Den, because he weren't in the squad at all for Norwich in their game yesterday. So I don't wish him well in his recovery if he is injured, unfortunately for him. And also, I know we're trying to speak about the togetherness of some of the players, but George Honeyman, what a boy he is. He absolutely loves it. He gets right up for it, doesn't he? You could just see him riding up the Bristol City players, even when it was dying down. He wanted to go again. But yeah, it's brilliant to see. We haven't had that for a while. There was a couple of times at the start of the season where something would kick off on the pitch and there'd be like 4 or 5 opposition players against one of ours, but that certainly doesn't appear to be the case anymore. So yeah, it's really good to see. I'm going to kind of echo, well, not even echo, I'm just going to repeat what Ben said. We're definitely on the road to something, and we don't want to, again, almost do what Edwards did, kind of walk before we can crawl in some respects. I still think there's a little bit of a way to go, but who knows?
No, and I think it's right to not get carried away, because it is work in progress, and it is the whole process.
Not get carried away like Ben did after, Ben did when Edwards got appointed.
I was just saying that on mute then. I'm 100% getting carried away. And
well, like you did when Edwards got promoted and we was going to beat Sheffield Wednesday 6-0 and only won 4-0. You're disappointed.
Every win from here on, you will see on my Twitter feed, Joe Edwards, Champions League Lions. Seeing as it's not the name of the show, very disappointingly, I have to get that in there.
It's one of those where I think, given a fair crack at this league for Edwards and perhaps the sprinkling of his own squad, I think it'd be very interesting just to see how far we could potentially go. I think this season might be a bit of a push. You never know. We're a second half of the season team, and it could well turn into something really, really special. But we're certainly on the way, and I think Edwards knows that as well. And coming on to Edwards for this part of the show, he seems to be a man that has now had the weight lifted off his shoulders. He's got a little bit more, I think, a little bit more of an understanding of what it takes to perhaps be the Millwall manager and what is expected both at the Den and perhaps away from home. We don't expect miracles, but we expect the types of performances that we've been getting over the last couple of games, that never say die attitude. And I think he's quickly learning on the job, and full praise to him, that whilst there's a way of winning games of football, you do have to have a little bit of backbone about you. And I think he's finally started to realise that. Ben?
Well, I think it's a credit to the players as well, mate, because again, you listen to all the recent interviews that they've done, Hutch recently, the honeymoon interview after the Norwich game, they've all spoken about that way of winning games like we are, but also saying the manager knows, the players know, we've got more in the locker in terms of what we're doing on the ball. So I don't want to say we're winning playing badly, because that's not the case. We're doing well, but the players know and the manager know, as they've said, that there is more there for the players to tap into. We can be doing more on the ball. We can be better on the ball. So it's only positive signs, right? We're winning, not necessarily in a way that the manager perhaps wants us to play, or is his philosophy. So yeah, look, it's only positive. And as you say, I think now there's been an understanding, or certainly a switch after the heavy defeats that we had, that Edwards just now knows, as you said, Stephen, that there is a way in which we need to play. The players have got it back as well, it seems. They've got their mojo back of being Millwall players.
And Dan, finally, just on Joe Edwards, do you think that perhaps now he come in and there wasn't really an expectation necessarily, because it was his first job and it was a fresh idea, it was the trust the process, if you will. Then it started to go a little bit wrong for him, and the pressure was ramped up, and we were slipping down the table. Do you think that now we're kind of building our way back up again, that it's not necessarily a free hit, but he's got an opportunity to really just go, well, we should be okay, let's just have a crack at it?
Well, we're a second half of the season team. We're 8 points off the playoffs. So who knows? This league's bonkers. All it takes is a couple of wins. So you never really know, do you? So let's just see what happens. But yeah, as you said, the pressure ended up getting ramped up on him probably a bit quicker than he anticipated, I think. But I think obviously you speak about him learning. I think that Norwich game, that atmosphere was a huge kind of learning curve for him, and probably for a lot of the players as well. Sorry, my phone's going. Probably for a lot of the players as well, in terms of a lot of them haven't seen that atmosphere at the Den. Sorry, I'm just going to mute, but you get what I'm saying.
What was really funny there was that he was massively put off by that. He's please stop. So
who has a home in 2020?
My granddad refuses to call anything else.
Fair enough.
Oh, we've all been put off by Dan's house phone. No, I think the Norwich game was a real turning point. Obviously, I think QPR was relief more than anything for Edwards.
QPR and Norwich both gave out the same message in very different ways. If that kind of makes any sense whatsoever. I mean, in my head it does, but I just can't really think of the words to kind of describe it, just because they were two different games, and obviously we won them both, but they were taught us the same lesson in how to win games and what to do in two very different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also kind of gives Edwards the belief that, and I think we see it, and there's been a lot of talk about it, when we're in possession of the ball, we play a certain way. The shape of the team is one way. When we lose the ball, we sit back into a different shape. It's not the rigid, I hate to keep bringing it up, but Gary Rowett, we're going to play this formation and that's it. There's no change. There's no flexibility. This is it. This is what we're going to do. Whereas under Edwards, as I say, with and without the ball, we have two different setups. And at the moment, over the last, as I say, we've conceded one goal in 5 games, which was a penalty. So you can't really, we've not been cut open as such. Yeah, okay, Stoke had a few chances, but out of the ball, teams are finding it really, really hard to break us down, because Edwards has got us playing in a certain way that dictates that the opposition have got to be really, really good to cut through us.
Yeah, and I think you see every team having that way of playing now, that in possession formation, out of possession formation. But yeah, the again, like what you saying, Stephen, I don't like to keep going back to that Rowett, or talking about Rowett and what we did with Rowett, but yeah, we seem to have gone back into certainly being out of possession. We've got that nice mix of being organised but pressing at the right times and knowing when to press. And I think, again, that's where it was one of the criticisms that we had with Rowett. It seemed like when he was first with us, we started like that, and it's just slowly diminished into just sitting in and letting teams have the ball. But we do have a nice mix at the minute of knowing when to press. The trigger of the press seems to be right. And yeah, going forward, again, we just seem to have. We all understand what we're trying to do, how we're going to create goals, what our game plan is. And again, we lacked a little bit of that, or we lost our way a little bit with that, certainly at the back end of Rowett. So I know I didn't want to talk about him, and I've just spoken about him quite in detail there. But yeah, you get my point again. We just everything seems to be refreshed at the minute, and we seem to defensively and going forward have much more stability defensively and have a much clearer idea and style of playing going forward.
We seem to be riding a wave at the moment. It's just a case of obviously how long can we make said wave last? Obviously,
well, just on that, and you look at our next 3 games. Sorry to jump in, mate.
Yeah.
Take out Leicester, it's the FA Cup, but Borough, they're doing well, but it's a home game.
They're very hit and miss, Borough, though, aren't they? And they've got a really bad injury list at the minute as well.
QPR struggling, Preston struggling, Hull. I watched them the other night against Sheffield Wednesday. I know it's a local derby or a Yorkshire derby, but that Sheffield Wednesday obviously beaten. I know we're down to 10 men. So
that was a bad refereeing decision, that one, though, wasn't it?
It was, but even before that, Sheffield Wednesday are in the game. So we've got 4 league games, really, that are winnable. And it's not often we all probably go into games thinking they are winnable. So, yeah, whilst we're on that wave, I think...
I mean, even if you win 3 of them, as you've just seen from where we were before Christmas and where we are now, if we was to do that again, you could easily find yourself maybe not in the top 6, but you could find yourself knocking on the door of the top 6. And I don't want to get carried away.
If we win 3 out of those 4 games, we will 100% be knocking on the door, because if you put a run together like 1 that we have already and 2 sustain that into a 10-game run, you're going to be flying up the championship table because it's so tight. So if we win 3 of those games, we will be knocking on the door, if not in the playoff picture.
I'll make an off-the-cuff prediction of 7 points from them 4 games.
I mean, it's hard to look past at the moment, as I say, riding the wave, actually picking up that amount of points, or maybe a little bit more. The other interesting thing on that, and we'll come on to the transfer window in a little bit more detail. If you win against Middlesbrough, maybe the game after, which I think that's QPR after, isn't it? If you do manage to pick up 4 points, 6 points in those games, and you've still got a few days left in the transfer window, all of a sudden you become a lot more of a hotter prospect for clubs to go, hold on a minute, we will send XYZ on loan to Millwall because they're pushing. So it's not just the results and pushing yourself up the table. It could also impact who we may see come through the door and also leave the club. And on the subject of, I'm not necessarily suggesting that anyone's going to leave. I don't know anything, but the situation that I feel is a very big talking point is Romain Esse and Ademola Maku, because when Joe Edwards took over, I think most of us probably thought that they'd get some game time, but it would be Romain Esse that would be the kind of star boy, the time to shine. But Maku's bided his time. He's waited for his opportunity, and in the last couple of games, the last 3 especially, he's been outstanding for me. Raw, and he's got a lot to learn still, but that pace and that desire, that it seems he's the one that's taken his opportunity, and it's almost not, people are not forgetting about Romain Esse, but all the talk now is all about Maku, right?
Well, you can now confirm to the listeners that you messaged Mickey at the same time to tweet complete this sentence. The breakthrough star at Millwall in 2024 will be fill in the blank. So you can now confirm to the listeners that you plan to say that all the time and message Mickey when you was about to say it so he could tweet it out.
We are telepathic, apparently, because I knew nothing about that tweet. I'm not admitting anything. However, that is a very, very that's a very interesting point, because for all the money in the world, you'd have banked on Esse, but Maku's the one that's taken his opportunity. And I thought, not just taking his opportunity, that boy is absolutely buying into this football club. There's videos of him at the end chanting, singing Millwall songs, not just any old song or rocking over the world. He's singing the Millwall songs, and he's just absolutely loving life. He must have felt like, coming over to England, it's this big opportunity to shine in English football, and at the moment he's taken that with both hands.
He signed a new contract as well, hasn't he? Go on, Ben. Go on.
No, sorry, Dan, you go finish.
Okay. Well, I'll keep it short and sweet. Obviously, he signed the new contract, so it shows there was obviously been rumours of some bigger clubs coming in, watching him on the watching him for the Irish playing international football. So clearly, he's still seen as a top prospect. We managed to nail him down, presumably for a few more years. That's obviously what the contract's done for us. But I think one thing that maybe appeals to Joe Edwards with regards to Amaku over SA is the fact that Amaku has had men's football experience already. He's playing pretty regularly for the Ireland under 21s. I think he is a year or two older than SA as well. So maybe in terms of physicality as well, he's probably a bit further down the line. So I can see maybe why he's appealing a bit more to Edwards at this point in time than SA. I'm not writing SA off by any means, but I can see why that they're probably leaning towards giving Amaku more game time at this point.
Well, Dan's stolen everything what I was going to say. I think, that 2-year difference is huge. You can see Amaku's physically, I'd say, in a better place to be able to deal with the Championship than SA is. I know there's always that comment of if they're old enough, if they're good enough, they're old enough. I get that, but Amaku is just completely different physically to SA, and he is far more equipped. I also think it does take a player to not struggle. He only went through probably 3 or 4 games of not having his best in a Millwall shirt, but he probably very quickly realised what he needed to do on and off the ball just to remain in the side. So we've seen glimpses. We saw him at Preston. He was excellent. And I think we've seen a more consistent Amaku now. I think what we're going to have to just realise is he is still only 20. And I think the way that Edwards has managed him over the Christmas period, certainly, of bringing him in and out, where people have mentioned about him not starting, etc., has been brilliant. And again, we've mentioned this a few times, Joe Edwards has pretty much been an exclusive coach in youth team football. He will know what is required from a physical standpoint to compete in the Championship. So, yeah, he's managed him brilliantly. SA is a difficult one for me. I think Saturday is quite an important game for him. I think if he doesn't start Saturday or at least get 45 minutes, I think we might see or get a picture of where he is in Edwards' plans or immediate plans. And if he's not in the starting lineup, then, yeah, I don't see why a loan move wouldn't benefit everyone, to be honest.
I think Saturday, you kind of stole what I was going to say there. So you've done what Dan did to you. I think SA...
We're all telepathic at that Millwall podcast.
SA it's a curious situation for everybody, because there's talk of being sold. There's talk, is he going to stay? What's the plan? Is he being managed? What's Edwards' thoughts? If he doesn't get game time on Saturday, then it wouldn't surprise me to see him out the door in the January transfer window. Not sold. I personally think he will be loaned out this month and given an opportunity to be playing men's football. Perhaps, if a big bid does come in from a Liverpool or an Arsenal or something like that, then the money might be too good to turn down. But I don't think the club are going to want to let an asset go like that, and they're going to want to kind of get him bulked up a little bit. But certainly Saturday will be a good. You'll have a good understanding on where we lie with him. Moving on to the transfer window, obviously we're now in January. This window is notorious to do lots of business for most clubs. Even the so-called bigger clubs struggle to bring in lots of players during this time. There's been no real rumours. This is the young lad from Spurs, perhaps, that we're sort of sniffing around. Ben, thoughts on the transfer window?
Yeah,
he is good on Football Manager, isn't he?
He is, mate. He's a Football Manager legend. I think, look, we always talk about positions that we need to strengthen in. I think it's probably easier for us to maybe look at where we can categorically rule out that we're a position that we're going to look at. So for you fellas, where would you say we don't need to sign anyone? And I'll start and say central midfield is pretty much covered, right?
Yeah, we're pretty stacked in central midfield.
So, yeah, where do you think we won't sign anyone?
I'll chuck goalkeeper into the mix, because obviously Sarkic just came in, 4 clean sheets in a row, and obviously Bart's proved himself to be, when he had his run of game.
Right? There's a lot of rumours that he
I think he'd stay until the end of the season. I don't think Bart's going.
Yeah, it would. If we lose Bart, there's rumours that Portsmouth are sniffing around. I don't know their situation with their goalkeeper at the moment.
They've got a pretty good first choice goalkeeper. Again, unless they're shipping off their second choice keeper and they want to bring Bart in as a second choice, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't seen too much. So there's a rumor that was going around that's what was going to happen, but I'm not too sure. Another position I'm going to throw into the mix, which it sounds really baffling considering that there's all the talk about it. I don't think we're going to be looking for a centre half whatsoever. I think
I was half tempted to say centre half for a couple of reasons. I'll let you go on to it, but I do see your logic.
I think Edwards has found a way to make it work over the last few weeks with the defenders that we've got. Obviously, Harding is injured. He's expected to be back relatively soon, but with Leonard potentially being able to move over and shift over to the centre back position, rather than being sort of yeah, he plays sort of on the right hand side of the defence, doesn't he? But then when we drop to a 5, he's a third centre half. So I think there's options. I think we'd be okay in defence, and I think Edwards would rather use what we assume to be limited funds available in January, or loan slots. And if you have to pay fees, because that tends to happen now, doesn't it, with loan signings from the bigger clubs, I think he would be more interested in perhaps the attacking positions to strengthen rather than areas where he probably feels we can get by. So I would agree. The centre of midfield, I think we're pretty stacked, especially with Honeyman now being an option in there. It gives another number. Centre half and goalkeeper, unless Bart is required elsewhere.
I'm going to chuck in another one, and I'm going to say right back, because you've got Ryan Leonard, who's obviously mainly playing there at the moment. You've got Brooke Norton-Cuffy. You've got Danny McNamara, who hasn't had much game time, but on his day, obviously he's a very good player at this level. But even he's a solid defender. I don't think he's probably a wing back. I think we've had this discussion quite a bit, but I think he's a solid defender at this level, if nothing more than that. But that's 3 pretty good options there. I think Billy Mitchell's played there in the past. I'm not saying I'd want to see him play there, but if you're desperately short, that's another pair of legs that could play there. So, and Honeyman's played wing back as well a little bit for us. So I think that you'll be well covered in that right back position. So I don't think that's going to be another position we look at.
Well, this was the reason why I went with where we won't strengthen, because we've gone through a large part of the side there, right? So where will we strengthen them? We said that the attacking area. So will we get another centre forward in? If so, I mean, Nisbet isn't starting at the minute, so Bradders is the first choice centre forward, obviously. So Nisbet's going to then not be knocked down the pecking order. Is he going to be happy if we bring a centre forward in? We then talk about the forward players in that formation that we're now playing. You have Watmore or Fleming in there in that 2-10 role. You're not going to... Are you going to get someone in there to replace Fleming or Watmore? So it's an interesting one now. That was the reason why I went through where we won't strengthen first, because 3 or 4 weeks ago, we would have gone left back, centre half, and we would have reeled them off. But now form's changed. Does it change our targets at all, do we think?
I think it changes the targets slightly. I do still think that Edwards is probably... We're still lacking pace.
We're lacking wingers.
Yeah, and Maku is obviously rapid, and Norton Cuffy is very quick as well. But when, for example, yesterday you're lining up, and if a Maku isn't going to play every game, Edwards made the comment, didn't he, that he's not started 3 games of football in English football at all. So it was a risk that he wasn't willing to take. So if they are managing a Maku, which is the right way to go, I think initially, your only outlet with any real pace is Norton Cuffy. And I feel like as good as he's been, and he's been absolutely outstanding, you can't just rely on him to be that outlet. So I do think pace in attacking areas would be a certain way to perhaps boost the squad. It also is dependent on, as I say, outgoings. I'm not expecting us to lose too many players, if many, in the transfer window. But if SA is going to go out on loan, you would then have to bring in another attacking player to give us that cover on the bench for me.
So because... we are saying in that the role that Watmore, Fleming, and Maka are sort of playing in that 10 position. That's where
I think so. The striker one is really, really interesting because Bradshaw at the moment is absolutely giving us everything, and added a couple of goals. Nisbet, I do think, would score goals if given the opportunity. If we bring in another striker, where do you see?
What's that?
Ben's playing with the techno for the viewers, for the benefit of the podcast. Ben's putting up thumbs up.
No, I wasn't. Do you know what that is? That's I get it when I'm on Teams. If your emotions, if you're smiling, it gives you feedback to a thumbs up, or if you're like moody, it'll do a thumbs down. So it's telling you you're happy, mate. That is what that is.
I was happy talking about Kevin Nisbet, not Tom Bradshaw. That's what it was. That's what. But yeah, I do agree with what you said though. To be fair, that if you bring in another striker and we're only really playing with a one striker formation with your attacking players are in the kind of the 2 number 10s or 3 number 10s, however you want to position it. It'd be interesting, but I think Edwards knows what he wants. Whether he gets it or not is another issue. But I don't think the squad will drastically change. But I certainly think he'll be looking for options moving forward that he can bring off the bench, because we are kind of samey in the sense that if a Maku starts, he's coming off, and it's Watmore or vice versa. You might get Longman on for a little while. Maybe something a little bit different, maybe a bigger presence or someone who's absolutely lightning like a Maku. So you've got more options like that. But the window's only just open. We do our business on the last couple of days when every other club's done their business, and we just sign the rejects from everyone else.
That's the problem. Because of our budget, because of who we are, we have to wait for clubs higher up the food chain to do their business, and then it eventually filters its way down to us. That's how it's always worked with us.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm also conscious.
Sorry, Steve. One thing to touch on there as well is the Honeyman debate and going back into midfield. We've spoken about it a few times. We kind of said it about Harding to some extent. We kind of stumbled upon him because of injuries. Have we stumbled upon Honeyman playing his best position because of injuries and suspensions? Because I don't think there's any coincidence that since he's played in that central role that we've all probably been crying out for, and we've been saying he's not a winger, that we've performed better. I'm not saying Honeyman's our main man by any stretch, but have we stumbled upon that because Denor's been injured and say Sav's been suspended?
Yeah, I said that on the live after the Norwich game. I think that he looked brilliant and against QPR, looked brilliant against Norwich, and I haven't watched the full Bristol City game, but looks good against Bristol City from what I've seen as well. So I certainly think that the centre is his best position, and as I said on Sunday, it might give him a little bit of a headache in terms of what does he do? Does he? Does Honeyman stay in when Casper's fit? Does Saville come out the team? Does Casper have to earn his way back in? Does Honeyman come out? So it's a dilemma for Edwards, but it's a nice dilemma to have. You'd rather have that dilemma than thinking, like, fucking hell, I've got to pick between 2 shit players, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. He goes to put on his points in post matches where he said we haven't got that many good players in good form. Now we do. So it's interesting to see how we manage that. And just to touch upon Mitchell, again, we spoke about if we get a centre forward in, if Honeyman is going to drop back into that centre midfield role, Mitchell then drops down that food chain. He's probably outside of Campbell. We can put a line through him. He's bottom of the pile. Is Mitchell going to want to not play a huge amount of football? I know we've got a lot of games left in the season, so there's a lot of football to be played.
It is just a quick dilemma, and we are going to move on in a second because we're recording this on Tuesday. The dart starts in about 5-10 minutes, and for those of you who are unaware, our very own Mickey Simpson, he's a very talented man. He's acted as Santa Claus, obviously fan on the board. He was in the running to become the Millwall manager. He's actually in the World PDC Championship of Darts. He's in the semi-final tonight, so we all want to go off and watch him.
You have absolutely robbed my next bit that was going to lead on.
I knew you was waiting to say that. That's why I've just got it in before you. So thank you very much. But just a quick one before we do move on, to speak about the Leicester game very quickly. If we kept Alan Campbell, but it meant Billy Mitchell could go out on loan to League One for 6 months to try and develop a bit more as a player, get his confidence back up, and he comes back to us in the summer, or he ends up sitting on our bench as our 4th or 5th choice midfielder for the rest of the season, what option are you picking?
send him out on loan. He's still a young lad, isn't he?
So you would keep Campbell. Obviously, I think there is pros and cons of both. Obviously, and obviously keeping Campbell means I don't know how much of his wages we're paying. I assume we're paying probably at least half of them, and takes up a loan slot.
I wouldn't keep Alan Campbell to sacrifice having Billy Mitchell around the squad and in around the team, to be honest. But if Campbell stays, then obviously that's the decision. If Campbell stays, then I think Mitchell should go out on loan, but I wouldn't prioritise Alan Campbell over Billy Mitchell. I wouldn't prioritise a loan player over one of your own personally.
No, I wouldn't prioritise him, but if Honeyman's going to be the next one in line now to play centre mid, which again we've all said he should be playing central, I would rather Honeyman in there. He seems to affect games more than Billy. Well, I know recency bias is probably a big thing in that, but if Billy's going to be sixth choice, I'd rather him be out on loan. Is just my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Honeyman though, because, and this is perhaps a debate for another time, but do you think that Honeyman's looking better in the team because he's the one that they're looking for to try and make us tick to play the forward passes, but Casper is going to take. Is the same type of player. I'm not saying they're similar in ability, but Casper's the one that tries to make us tick, that plays the forward passes. Honeyman is adopting that role because obviously Casper's been out injured. Billy Mitchell, is he the one that makes us tick, that makes us go forward, or is he the holding midfielder? So would he be competing with George Saville? And we know that Sav has his a yellow card in him. He's obviously suspended. So I don't know if it's a direct comparison between the two, because I think they're two different midfielders. And personally, I think Honeyman is filling a void, and I don't think Edwards really will stick with him moving forwards as well as he's played. And I take my hands off to him. He's been very, very good. I think we're waiting for Casper to come back, and you'll see Honeyman drop out of the team personally.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed with that. Not necessarily comparing Casper to Honeyman, but again, I've said it a million times. Last year, I felt like we really missed Honeyman on that run-in. I think we've stumbled upon Honeyman playing his best position or best area of the pitch in terms of central. And I like him. He's got energy. He's got quality. He played there for Hull, I think, most of his career. Certainly played central for Sunderland. So I would like to see him more in that position. I don't think there's any coincidence that since he's been in there, we've been better.
As Dan said, it's a good dilemma to have. It's better to be having discussions around what players you'd leave out rather than who'd you bring in because you're struggling. So it's certainly a better headache for Joe Edwards than what he maybe was faced with about sort of 5, 6, 7 games ago, which leads us nicely to the end of the show and to touch on the Leicester game at the weekend. FA Cup tie, not the most glamorous, probably not going to be the biggest of crowds. Leicester are not bringing coaches because no one will offer to take their fans to the Den on a coach, which is absolutely ridiculous. But hey ho, wholesale changes, 3 or 4 changes. What are we expecting, Dan?
More wholesale. I saw Edwards saying today we've been 100% flat out recently for the last 3 or 4 games. So I think you've probably got a lot of. I think we've all mentioned as well on paper the depth in our squad's really good. So I think you will probably see potentially. I don't know how many changes were allowed. Maybe the full complement of substitutes we had at Bristol City might come into the starting 11 for the Leicester game, very possibly. Maybe there might be a couple of exceptions, like maybe keep Joe Bryan on the bench in case Murray Wallace gets injured, just to protect Bryan a little bit. But I think you're going to be looking at 6, 7 changes. Ben, agree?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think the FA Cup's the same as the League Cup. I think that rule's only in the League Cup in terms of how many changes you can make. I think.
Okay. So I would expect probably something like 7, 8 then.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm the same. I think. Yeah, we're going to make as many as we can just based on the fixture congestion, what Edwards has said. And I think it's just a good opportunity to see players who probably haven't had that many minutes. Be interesting if Bryan does play, whether they'll use him to get more minutes under his belt, or whether they'll protect him a little bit more. Well, we see Adam Malachi So yeah, I would expect as many changes as we can make will be made.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's interesting because we don't know. I don't know about Ryan Longman if he's cup tied, so that'd be one that we're not sure if
he will not be cup tied. If he's still here, he won't be cup tied because he won't play for anyone else.
Not cup tied, but Hull might not allow him to play in the FA Cup, and there's no reason for them not to.
The only reason they wouldn't, I
can
possibly think of, is because in case they were thinking about recalling him, but I don't see it. I don't see why they'd want to recall him, to be completely honest. So I can't see that being a problem.
No, I mean that could be a potential issue. I don't know. I'm sure we'll know later on in the week. I'm expecting at least 4 or 5 changes, again dependent on who's available, who's fit. In midfield, there's not really many changes that we can make with Saville out and Casper out. So we might see Mitchell and Honeyman get another go together, but it'll be interesting. We'll do a quick prediction. I know we've got the live on Friday, but are we expecting I don't want to say a shock, but are we expecting us to turn over Leicester on Saturday?
I'd imagine they'll be similar, won't they? They'll make a few changes, so it could just be a bit of a nothing cup tie, and who wants it more on the day might be victorious. I do see a little bit of an opportunity for us to keep the momentum going. I wouldn't want to have a heavy defeat or anything like that, but yeah, it's always a bit of a tough one when you play a team in the same league as you. In the FA Cup, I always feel like unless you're playing someone you know you're going to beat, someone struggling in your league, I'm not too fussed about it. I'd love to have a cup run.
Do we still have replays or not, by the way? Did they scrap them or?
Mate, so many changes now. I have no idea.
I have no clue whether there's replays or not, to be completely honest.
I mean, that would be a disaster if there is.
I was about to say the worst case scenario is that we end up with a replay and going up there and all our momentum gets ended off, getting told.
Up for a corner in the 90th minute just so they can score on the break.
Just smash it in your own net. Just absolutely lump it in the back of the net, and I'll take that. We'll take the fine and investigation and whatever. But it's a cup tie. There's going to be loads of changes. I think it's really hard to call. We'll always say we'll go through. I hope we do. Like you said, Ben, I'd like a cup run, but I'm not so sure Saturday is the priority really for Edwards and the club. Really, as much as we'd love the cup run, I think they've got bigger fish to fry in the transfer window to keep an eye on. As Dan touched on earlier, we are recording this on the Tuesday night. The boys are desperate to watch Mickey at Ali Pali this evening on the telly. We're going to get it in the neck for that. Boys, any final?
Taken in that you are.
Any final words? Dan, I'll come to you first.
Firstly, best of luck, Mickey. We'll be rooting for you tonight. And let's keep up this form. It hasn't been often, really. How often did we get to say in 2023, like we've got a good bit of momentum? Maybe the last time we said it was near enough a year ago. I think in kind of January, February, we had a little bit of a run then, didn't we? So let's keep this run going. It's actually been quite enjoyable to go to games for the last few weeks. I want to keep that up. Let's see what we can do. And I don't think nobody really needs their mind jogging about what happened the last time we played Leicester in the FA Cup. So who knows what could happen again?
Absolutely. So instead of Sean Cummins, it'll be Danny McNamara nipping up with a goal in the last minute. Ben, any final words from you?
Just nice to come on and be positive, talk about nice things in terms of winning and positive. Yeah, conversations, really. Players.
You're making it out like we've just talked about flowers for the last 53 minutes.
Well, mate, some of the chats in recent weeks have been tough, haven't they? So, yes, it's nice to have a bit of positivity back. I think Joe mentioned it in our group and tweeted, it seems like we're looking up now rather than over our shoulders. So, long may that continue. A little bit of a plug for myself. I'm running the 50 miles over Jan. For the Royal British Legion. If anyone hasn't seen that, please give us a donation. Stephen, thank you very much for doing that, mate. Young Daniel, get in your wallet, please. Nice to come on and have a positive conversation about the Lions.
I will. And also, while you mentioned Joe Zampa, we know he's on the road to recovery now after he's up. We wish him well from us three.
You both literally robbed my end piece. I thought Ben was going to forget, and I didn't know if you were going to mention Joe. But Ben is running 50 miles for the Royal British Legion, isn't it? In January. Have you done any of your miles yet?
I've done today and yesterday, done 2 miles apiece. I nearly died yesterday. Today was a lot easier. For anyone that knows me or doesn't know me, I haven't done a stroke for about 6 months, probably longer. All I've done is eat and drink. So, it's been tough on the legs. I definitely need, if there's any physios out there, I definitely need a rub down, preferably if they're female.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what, Ben, because you're coming down actually for the game on Saturday, aren't you? Our northern correspondent's coming down south, so good chance to get some miles in there. That's what I see.
Yeah. Can't wait. So it's I've made a little plan. If I can do X amount of miles per day rather than doing it in chunks, then I'll get there. But it was easier today. I'm hoping tomorrow will be easier again. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely. We will put a link in the description to Ben's donation page where you can donate to him. Obviously, any donations will be greatly received. I'm doing a 24-hour gaming marathon. That's in February, so there's a little bit of time left for that. But again, that's for Mind Charity. That will be in the description as well. We're really sorry. We are going to be plugging both of these as much as we can over our social media and on the show. So you're going to get sick of it, but we're doing our bit for charity. Ben's actually getting out and being active, and I'm sitting in front of my TV playing on PlayStation for 24 hours. So I think I'm the real winner out of the 2 events. That's been That Millwall podcast. Thank you to all the listeners, obviously, that helped us grow last year in 2023. This year, hopefully, we'll be doing.
Oh, and Stephen has left the building early. Ben, are you telepathic enough to fill in the blank of what Stephen was going to finish on?
No, I'm not actually, because my Ring doorbell's just gone off and that's distracted me.
Neither am I. So I think, to be honest, on that note, we'll just wrap it up there. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And if I'm there, see you on Friday night.